Hello again subscribers, and if you're new to this channel, welcome. What I'd like to do today is show you how I make these supports for Cowboy Action target plates. They're relatively cheap to make and lightweight, and they fold up so you can easily get 10 of them in the boot of a small car. We've used them in action and they seem to be very robust, and they don't fold up when the bullet hits them, but they do fold up easily when you want to pack them away. Just to quickly show you how it works. The target plate is suspended on a small hook and it's angled backwards so that when a bullet hits it, it swings backwards and deflects the bullet fragments back into the ground. These particular target plates are 30 by 30 centimeters or 12 by 12 inches. Before we start, there are a couple of disclaimers. Firstly, these tripods are only for the support of Cowboy Action targets, so they expect to be hit by bullets maybe 250 grains maximum, travelling at a maximum of 1,000 feet per second. So if you make one of these and shoot at it with a 270 deer rifle and it falls over, don't come back to me to complain, because I did tell you what they were for. Secondly, I'm not really an engineer, I'm just a hobbyist, so maybe you'll see some of the techniques I use a little bit dodgy. Again, don't come back to me and complain that I didn't tell you that an angle grinder was dangerous and you subsequently cut your thumb off with it. Right, now to what you'll need to make one of these. I'll give you the dimensions in metric units because I live in the UK. If you live in the USA, you'll find that translations into imperial units should appear on your screen. For the side struts, you need two pieces of 25 by 8mm mild steel flat, 60 centimeters long. For the centre strut, you need again a piece of 25 by 8 mild steel, 95 centimeters long. For the centre bracket, you need a piece of 50 by 5mm mild steel flat, about 260 centimeters, 26 centimeters long. And to make the catch for the plate, you'll need a piece of mild steel 25 by 100 by 5mm long. You can cut it out of the 50mm strap. It is actually possible to make these tripods using just hand tools, although you will need an electric hand drill at the very minimum. Other things you can use are hacksaws and hammers and files, but I warn you, it's quite hard work, and I tend to use all the power tools I can get my hands on to make life easier. Okay, we'll start working on the side struts first. What we need here is a clearance hole for either a 10mm bolt or 3/8 bolt, and that is 12 centimeters from one end of the strut. I've centre drilled it to make it a little bit easier to find the hole. If you're using a fairly large drill, it's quite difficult to accurately centre it onto a centre punch mark. This is the trickiest, or at least the most labour intensive part of the operation. This is the centre bracket that holds everything together, and what we need to do is cut out these two pieces here, these two U-shaped sections, one there and one there, and also we need to put clearance holes for a 10mm bolt here and here. Now there are a number of ways of cutting these out, which I'll show you as we go along. I'll start by cutting out the bottom bits of the U-shape, which is the hardest part, and I'm going to do that by drilling a series of small holes along the bottom here, in this case 4. So I need to finish centre punching those. I figured you wouldn't want to see another video of somebody drilling holes, so I've finished this one earlier. I cheated, I've only drilled 3 holes because I used a slightly larger drill. What we need to do now is cut the side bits out. Now obviously one thing you can use to do that is a hacksaw, but it's kind of like hard work, so what I tend to use is one of these. This is an angle grinder. You can buy one for less than £20 from Asda or Lidl, and it's fitted with a cutting disc. Now this is a cutting disc, a new one. It's abrasive material. It's only 1mm thick, so it cuts a very fine cut, and it rotates at a very high speed, produces a lot of sparks and dust, and is quite a scary thing to use. So a face mask and gloves are an essential. Okay, now once you've made the side cuts by whatever means you have, you need to separate out the little bits. You can do this by filing through the residual metal here with a round file, sometimes called a rat tail file, or you can try brute force and just break them out by clamping them like so and wiggling them about. And if you've cut enough holes of the right size, it should go quite easily. Now all we have to do is clean them up. Now you can clean up these rough edges with a hand file, but being lazy I prefer to use one of these. This is called a power file. This particular one's made by Evolution, but there are several manufacturers, and it's just a little continuous band of emery paper driven by a small motor, and it makes life a lot easier. Now I'm going to bend up the central bracket into the rough V shape that we need. I'm going to use this thing here, which is called a strong arm parts bender. They come from Machine Mart in the UK, or I believe you can get them from Harbour Freight or Grizzly in the USA. If you don't have one of these, you're going to have to do the bending the hard way. Well, I'll tell you about that later. Meantime, let's try and bend this. So we need an angle of about 113 degrees. A little bit of force needed, not too much. Take it out and see where we are. Not quite enough, need to go a bit more. Right, that side's fine. In fact, we've gone a little bit too far, but that doesn't matter at this stage. Now we just turn it over and do the other side. Okay, well there's the bracket suitably bent up. It's 118 degrees bend angle, although that's not particularly critical. Now, what do you do if you don't have a bending machine like I do? Well, one of the things you can do is use brute force. Clamp it in a vise and hit it with a big hammer. Or you can put a bar over the end, a long bar, and clamp it onto this hole here and try and bend the whole thing. The other thing you can do if you've got a welder is to make a hacksaw cut about halfway through here. That'll make it a lot easier to bend, and then what you do is just weld up the bend afterwards and smooth it off with a flap disc or something. The next step is to make the hook on the end of the central strut. There it is, looks really simple. It's just a 10mm hole and a couple of cuts with an angle grinder or a hacksaw. You could make a little card template and mark it out easily. Just fits on the end like so, then you can mark round it. That's okay. Before we go much further, one of the things you can do, which is not absolutely essential, but is to round off the corners of some of these pieces of steel so that people don't spear themselves on the sharp corners. And I use my belt and disc sander to do that. don't have one of these sanders or a grindstone, but you do have an angle grinder, you could use one of these. This is called a flap wheel, and it consists of lots of little segments of emery cloth bonded onto a standard size angle grinder wheel. Very quick, very effective. Now we need to assemble the tripod and fix the bracket onto the central strut. It needs to fix on with the bottom of the bracket here 60 centimeters from the end of the strut. Now I'm going to weld mine on because it's the easiest and most secure way of doing it, but if you don't have a welder, there are really two options. Firstly, you can try drilling and tapping this and putting screws in through the back of the bracket. You'd need probably 3 screws, and because this is only 8mm thick, you could probably only get away with 3 or 4mm screws. So it's not going to be overly secure, and they're going to start coming unscrewed with the vibration. So it's not really a great option. The other thing you could do is take the pieces down to your local fabricating shop and ask them to weld them up for you. Shouldn't be overly expensive, as it's a fairly quick job. As I said, I'm going to weld mine using probably my MIG welder. I do have a stick welder, but probably MIG will do for this. I've had some in operation for 5 years and they were MIG welded and they haven't come apart yet. So there we have it, almost finished. I'm just going to clean it up a bit and give it a coat of metal paint, and then we can assemble it. Once you've painted the parts, assembling the tripod is very easy. You just need a 10mm or 3/8 bolt, about 30-35mm long, to hold the leg onto the bracket, and make sure you use a self-locking nut, otherwise you'll find they come unscrewed very quickly and the whole thing falls to pieces. Make sure that this part of the leg is long enough to fit into the slot in the bracket like that, and there's enough left over so it doesn't work loose. And then just tighten the nut up enough so that there's enough slack for this to move freely, but not wiggle about too much. Just like that. Don't worry about this hole here, that's just an experiment that didn't quite work out.